I'm Brandon and this is Video Game History, a show where I look back through a certain franchise of video games and retrospectively review them. Today we're reviewing Dexter's Laboratory Deesaster Strikes, the first Cartoon Network game for the Game Boy Advance. It was released in North America on September 26, 2001 and November 2 in PAL regions, and it was the second Dexter's Laboratory game to be made. Deesaster Strikes is actually one of the higher rated Cartoon Network games, sitting at a 65 on Metacritic, receiving an 8 out of 10 from Nintendo Power, a 7 out of 10 from Yahoo, and a 65 from IGN. However, it also received a couple of 2s and 3s, so I went into this game cautious, particularly after the trio of Powerpuff Girls games I had to endure. Immediately upon booting up the game, you find yourself watching quite a cool intro cutscene, so things are off to the right start. You also notice straight away that the game looks quite good, and the music is nice. Deesaster Strikes is definitely the best looking and sounding Cartoon Network game I've played so far. They're certainly taking advantage of the Game Boy Advance. After playing for about 30 seconds, it becomes incredibly obvious that this is just an Ape Escape clone with a Dexter's Lab skin. Dee Dee has gotten into Dexter's laboratory and managed to create hundreds of mini clones of herself, so it's up to Dexter to round them all up. I highly recommend that you play the tutorial instead of just jumping in headfirst. Otherwise you'll be incredibly confused, not knowing what to do, and it's unlikely you'll be able to progress far. Honestly, they should have made the tutorial mandatory. The game controls rather simply, with A controlling your jump, R is used to punch, L toggles your equipped item, and B allows you to use your item. Dexter is controlled with the D-pad. However, due to the game using a 3D environment, he becomes tough to control, making the platforming segments much trickier than they're intended to be. You'll find many unique weapons and items for use around levels, and these will often be crucial in solving puzzles and removing roadblocks. All the different weapons manage to capture the spirit of the show perfectly. Unfortunately, the vast majority of enemies can't be killed. Instead, they simply collapse for a few seconds and then get right up again. This becomes tedious and is really a waste of the unique weapons. Like the Ape Escape games, you have a hub world that allows you to travel to other levels. Unlike the Ape Escape games though, this hub world can be kind of confusing, and the map that they give you to track what levels you've been to really doesn't make anything clearer. In these levels, you'll mainly be fixing machines to access new areas so you can grab all of the mini DDs and return them. There are 70 levels spread across 8 unique worlds, each one feeling different enough from the last despite all being located inside of Dexter's lab. That's about as much positivity I can produce about this game, because the rest of my experience with Deesaster Strikes was filled with glitches and shocking game design. Firstly, when you lose all of your lives, it simply reloads your last save, meaning you start with the same amount of lives you had then, rather than doing something like, say, a 2D Mario, where if you lose all your lives during a world, you're sent back to the very start, but you still begin with the default amount of lives. If you don't know this and accidentally save your game with only one life left, progressing becomes insanely hard. Eventually I had to resort to using an infinite lives cheat because 1-ups were so rare, and if I didn't add any extra lives, I was never going to be able to progress. The very first time the game glitched on me, it wouldn't allow me to shoot, despite saying I had 40 bullets left. Okay, that's a minor annoyance, I'll let it slide. The game then glitched me through an electrified barrier. This meant I couldn't progress as I didn't have the required items to continue going forward, and it was impossible for me to get back through the barrier, no matter how hard I tried. Then the game decided it wanted to glitch the items you pick up, failing to register that I had picked up a key card. Because this key card completely disappeared but didn't go into my inventory, I was unable to progress, yet again. Finally, the game decided it was just flat out not going to let my character move. This was the last straw for me. I just couldn't take it anymore. I'd lost my progress thanks to glitches 3 times now. 1 time is too many, but 3 fucking times? That is unacceptable. There was no way I was going to continue persisting with such a broken, bland, and repetitive game and attempt to complete it.
New Dexter's Laboratory Go-Gurt tubes actually change color when you touch them.
This is a most ingenious, scientific invention.
Whoa! Ooh, pretty colors! Oh no!
Dee Dee, you silly girl! This is science, and science is not pretty.
Whatever!
There's Dexter and Dee Dee in new boxes of Go-Gurt with 12 different inventions for a limited time.
Get out of my laboratory!
Dexter's Laboratory Deesaster Strikes is awful. and somehow manages to come close to the trio of Game Boy Powerpuff Girl games. I really didn't think that was possible. I must have been playing a completely different game to the review outlets that scored this game positively, because the game that I played was a complete mess. It's just a poor man's Ape Escape, featuring some of the worst platforming you'll ever see. Without all the glitches, I probably could have wheeled myself on and completed the game, because while it's incredibly boring and repetitive, the gameplay isn't completely terrible. However, when your game glitches out once every hour or so, causing me to lose significant progress, there's no way possible that I can find the motivation to play it to the end. As I stated in my Dexter's Laboratory Robot Rampage review, I don't mind the idea of taking established games and putting a Cartoon Network show's skin on it, but when you do such a poor job of emulating the original, you might just be better off trying to create a completely original game. I don't even know why they thought it would be a good idea to make a Dexter's Laboratory Ape Escape style game for the Game Boy Advance, when a huge part of the Ape Escape games is that it's completely 3D. I bet if you all of a sudden made an Ape Escape game that forces you to move in a rigid grid, it would suck. I can only hope that future Dexter's Lab games have some originality about them.